2,000 people we have helped break into medical device sales here at New to Medical Device Sales. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has allowed us to be a part of your journey. And it's been absolutely amazing to see over the last 2.5 years of all the people we've been able to help not only break into medical device sales, but also be able to go and thrive in medical device sales. It's been amazing to work with individuals with no clinical experience, no sales experience, no background of any sort in sales or medical device sales. We've been able to show that you actually don't need it, that you can get the job by doing the job and being able to do it the right way. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to every single person who's allowed us to be a part of your journey.
I would not be where I am today without Jacob and his program.
And I broke into medical device sales using Jacob's course.
Jacob's course is just that resource.
Definitely one of the best investments that I've done for myself.
Jacob McLaughlin is the mentor you didn't know you needed.
And I can honestly say it's changed my life forever.
Can't wait to help more people break into medical device sales, and can't wait for the next several thousand people we help over the upcoming years. Welcome back to First Year in Medical Device Sales. I am your host, Jacob McLaughlin, and coming to you today with hopefully some knowledge. Hopefully you get a couple laughs. Hopefully it's just enjoyable today. That's always my goal for you guys. Every single time we get on a podcast with you all is hopefully we're just continuing to give you energy. We're continuing to make you guys better, continuing just to have you maybe think outside the box a little bit. And so what I want to make today's episode about is because like we talk about, we help people break into medical device sales literally every single day. We actually just announced on our LinkedIn, if you guys haven't seen it, we've now officially broken over 2,000 people into medical device sales. And as of 2024, we are getting our average person broken in 8.5 weeks at $105,502. So officially getting people in at over six figures. Like I always tell people, we're not the kind of team that's just trying to help you break in, because getting in at 50K, 60K, not knowing what you want to do, you can go do that for 3, 6, 12 months. You still might struggle, but it's like, we're not trying to be for that audience. We're trying to be with top performers and people who really want to come in and make a difference. Having helped that many people, we still get on calls with our former members, with current members, people that we continue to help, right? We give over a year access, continue to help these people. And so the reason I'm sitting here telling you that is I had a call with one of the people we helped to break in. And one of the conversations he called me about was just dealing with difficult accounts. And what he talked about was really this one doctor who's really tough to deal with. And so I wanted to make today's podcast just about dealing with tough accounts, tough doctors, tough surgeons, tough employees that you're going to deal with, because I don't think it's something that gets talked about a lot. There's not a lot of people who will go and talk to you about how to navigate these human beings. Again, I just want to make sure that we can provide you value, because again, they'll teach you how to sell. They'll teach you how to, do the training. They'll teach you how to set up your machine or your device. But then they're like, there's no training on what happens when you meet Janie, who hates your life, and you just walked in and she wants to crush your dreams today. The first thing I always let everybody know is, I know there's a lot of different healthcare jobs. I know there's a lot of different industries that you can go into, right? Whether it's a nurse, scrub tech, OR, right? But you can go outside of the industry, right? You can go into construction, everything. But what I want you all to know is from experience, when I've done this and been around a lot of different people who are in a lot of different industries, one thing I can sit here and tell you is healthcare can be one of the toughest and most toxic areas to be with. And what I mean by that is because I've personally experienced it. You guys have probably experienced it if you are in the industry, is you get a lot of people who just don't want to do any better for their life. They've been here for 10, 15, 20 years. They're making a certain salary, but they don't want to do any more. They're going to sit here and they're going to complain about their life. They don't like it. It freaking sucks. Everyone's the worst. Normally, in my experience, most of them are not that in shape. And before anybody freaks out and be like, well, Jacob, that's mean and all this stuff. Let me just sit here and tell you, I've worked with a lot of high achievers. I've worked with a lot of people as a personal trainer. And what I've personally noticed is a lot of times people will match their bodies. And what do I mean by that? If you have somebody who's very regimented and you have somebody who's very in shape, they usually are like, hey, this is how I do things. I'm a very structured human being. Compared to when I meet people who are 300-400 pounds honestly very sloppy. It's like, what's going on in your life? And usually they aren't paying bills. They're behind. They're barely making ends meet. Their house is a mess. Like everything else goes out of it. And so I just hope you guys know when I say that, that is not an attack at anyone. That is just my personal experience of what I've seen. And just so you all know, and I've seen it in my own family. So I can say that to you all because again, there's just very different human beings. And the reason I'm telling you all that is because a lot of times when you are the rep, you are the pretty girl or pretty guy that walks into the OR room, just from that, people hate you. Then let's add another layer on that is because they all think you make six figures. They think you all make 3, 4, 5, 600 grand or $1 million. They don't know you could be an associate making 60K or barely making enough that they're making, but then they're going to come and attack you. And I saw this so much with scrub techs, OR directors. Materials management was like the absolute most challenging most days. Now, I just want to say one of my biggest accounts, one of the ladies I worked with, she was the absolute best. And it's always amazing to meet really good people. But I wanted to just go into detail about how to navigate this because again, I'm not saying just because of how somebody looks, you can judge a book by cover, but like again, normally by positions, you're going to be able to get a read of it. And so what I just wanted to kind of go into detail about is like, how do you have these conversations with, surgeons, doctors, and the staff? And how are you going to have these conversations? So what I mean by that is this certain individual was at a surgery and they have a larger territory, which is very common for you guys in med device sales, depending on the division. So they had a larger territory and they were an hour from the other hospital where they were having a case. Well, that case that they were currently in was running a little long. So they called the other hospital to let them know that they're running a little bit behind. But as we all know, most hospitals are also running behind. So they told him that they were, let's say, an hour behind and that he was going to be good even if he stayed there another hour and then he could come back because of the timing of everything. He was like, great, awesome. Got done with his case and he's in the car just starting to drive over there. And then the nurse inside the room calls and says, we just put the patient under anesthesia. Where are you? And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm still over here. I had somebody from your account call. And that surgeon freaked out, went crazy, then went out of his way to call corporate and make a fuss. First off, the first thing I told him is, hey, don't worry about it. It's life. This does happen. If you are in med device sales and you are doing things, it is going to happen. You're going to have surgeries and surgeons. There's a couple things that I can always just tell you guys. Number one, a tip that I always did because I held a massive territory and most of these accounts would never go unless I was there. They would always be like, you have to be there. They would guilt trip you. They would then tell you certain times, and there were so many times I had a TikTok go viral one time because it was me talking about, hey, I called the account, they let me know that it was on time, I told them I could be there at that time, I confirmed it literally 3 hours before that, they said we're all good, I said if anything changes, please let me know. Then I get a call about an hour later of them yelling at me saying, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm getting ready to leave my house. They're like, we're already in the room and the patient's already under and we're already in the surgery. And I'm like, well, I'm a 45-minute drive away because you told me I had 3 hours. And then they were like, oh my gosh, this. And I just was able to let them go through the case. I was able to help them via the phone and just going through knowing your product. Again, why you need to be a specialist. So you could literally be on a phone call and just be talking and go through everything perfectly. Then I made a TikTok that went viral of like, hey, I called, I confirmed, but they told me it was this, but then they called me and lied and said it wasn't this. And then now I'm in trouble because they told me the wrong time. And you can see where that goes. And most reps are shaking their head and they're like, I've been there. So how do you handle a situation like this? Well, a couple things. One thing that I started really learning, instead of calling the front desk and just saying, hey, I'm with this doctor doing this procedure, are they running on time? And most people will be like, yeah, we are. But what you'll learn is most people don't know what's going on in the room. They're not even going to go check for you. So then you're in trouble. So what I learned, and my little tip to you all was, I would say, hey, can you patch me through to that room? Even though it could be 1 or 2 surgeries ahead, why that was helpful is because normally those nurses in there were the nurses for the day there, or the scrub techs for the day. So then if I got called into the room, I can say, hey, just wanted to check. This is the rep. For the next case, I wanted to see if you guys are running on time. And I will sit here and tell you the amount of times somebody in the front desk, when I would call them, say, no, that they're running an hour behind. And then I would get called into the room and they're like, no, we're just finishing up. Doctor's doing closing right now. It was so many times. And so what I'm sitting here telling you guys is you can't just trust the front desk of you calling. You actually need to get called into the room, right? So I told this guy that, hey, tip for next time, instead of just calling the hospital and asking, be like, hey, can you tell me which room doctor blah 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 with this case is going to be in? Because if you know that information, they know that you're the person that is going to be for that case, and then you're say, great, then can you get me into the room? They'll have you patch in while they're in the case, and then you talk to the actual nurse inside the case and be like, hey, I just want to see. Because also vice versa, I've had people at the front desk say, no, everything's running on time, we're going to be fine. And then I get in a call and they're like, no, Jacob, we haven't even started the case yet. Like, I had a guess, it's probably another hour or 2 hours. And then what I personally would do is I'll be like, hey, thank you so much. Can I actually just have you take down my number? And can you just shoot me a text when you guys get done with this case, right? Because there was it mattered where I was at, how long I had to travel. But that way I called inside the room. I got the information. I knew exactly what to deal with or what to do. And I asked them to go. So if there's any miscommunication, I now know because I went into the rooms, I'm covering myself. And then if someone, like for example, and it happened, like I would also double check again. Usually if they told me it's like 3 hours behind, I would call an hour and just be like, hey, just want to make sure you guys are still about 2 hours behind. It either was like, no, we actually sped up, or no, it's even delayed even farther, right? So I would just always get there. You gave the nurse your number. You could be like, hey, just let me know, keep me updated. Now, here's the thing. If they get really busy and then they don't let you know and then you go, well, again, when they start giving you any kind of crap and they're talking to you, it's like, hey, I called, you guys saw me, I was on the phone, like you guys, I asked you to help me. I try to be here when I can, but if you guys are delayed or doing stuff, I'm still running in my territory. That's how you can kind of cover yourself during a case like that. Now, number two, if you are getting to the point where you are dealing with a lot of different people, like I used to do with like a materials management, or I would deal with like nurses or surgeons. They are the tricky ones, right? Because surgeons are who you're trying to deal with. And again, then the surgeons are always like, I need you here at all times and all stuff. But for example, I was with certain nurses and I sold a certain device that a lot of times they didn't want to do anything unless I was there, and they would freak out if the rep's not there and all the good stuff. A couple things I did. Number one, always put my card on our capital equipment that they would use, and I would always put it here, and then I would circle it. And then whenever I was in the OR at that hospital, or I did in-service once a month or whatever it is, I made sure everybody knew that it was there. And so I was like, you can't sit here and tell me you didn't know, because I just did a in-service last month and my card's here. You could have called me, you could have texted me. Did you even try to look, right? I have to hold them accountable on certain things. There was one account that was so bad, I literally had to have them write my number and my name and what rep I was on the marker board at the beginning or inside the OR, that the board that everyone looked at, just in case there was any cases. Just so you know, to make you all feel better, they still never called me, and I'd still get calls of being like, what's going on and where are you and all the stuff. And it's like, well, nobody ever let me know. So what do you want me to do? Right? So the reason I'm just sitting here telling you that is, as someone who had experience and now was like a territory manager, was being successful, I was able to have those real conversations. If you're a brand new rep, here's the hardest part, is just being like, hey, I'm new, I'm learning, and making sure that you continue to show up so you can be there for them. But what I want you guys to really think about is, when I had these really tough conversations up there, would be like, well, I need you here and all this stuff. I would always just hit them with a little smile and I say, hey, I totally understand, I want to be here. But until you guys hit my full quota by you just doing all of my cases, I unfortunately have to go to other places, right? Every time I said that to a nurse or a scrub tech or somebody, like they usually would understand it, because it's like, I have a business I'm doing. If I was ever talking to a surgeon, now let me just sit here and tell you, if surgeons are really pissed off, you have to walk very carefully, because they're going to just be on their time, and there's nothing you're going to say or do that's going to make it feel better. But at some points, like this person calling corporate, freaking out, trying to get this person fired, it's like, okay. So what I told him to say, like in those cases, I've had that. And again, just so you guys know, if you do this long enough and you have success and you build it to where you have more than one surgery going on a day, you're going to run into this problem eventually. And it's like, you just have to be able to have the conversation with the doctors and the surgeons. But what I learned is you need to relate it to them. So whenever I'd have a surgeon call me pissed off, they'd be yelling at me, they'd be screaming, what's going on, all this stuff. I'd be like, hey doc, like, just so you know, this is what I did. I called them, and then they can freak out and do whatever they want. But for example, in that case, in that scenario where that guy's yelling and freaking out, what I told this person today is like, hey, I'm going to be there. You show up for the case. He's still going to be mad. He's going to be able, not wanting to talk to you. But at the end of the day, this is the conversation you had. Hey, doc, I'm really sorry for what just went on. But I do want to just ask what you would like me to do next time in this situation, that I was at another surgery with another doctor and another patient that was on the table under anesthesia. and I was in the case with them. They were having difficulties with that patient and they needed my help during the surgery. Just so you know, I called multiple times, let the hospital know that I was running behind. They told me you guys were running behind, and I just told them that I would be here when I could be and I would keep them all updated. And then they said, hey, you have 2 hours, we're good. And then not even an hour later, I'm getting a call with you guys yelling at me, freaking out because I'm not here for the case, which I communicated with the hospital about. Just so you know, I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to be here, but just so you know, so I can learn from next time, what would you like me to do in that situation? Because I was in a tough situation where I was with a patient, I was with another surgeon, I was coming to you, but I did communicate with the hospital to make sure that you guys knew I was coming. But then when they tell me I have 2 hours, 3 hours, and then you guys call me 45 minutes later, and now you guys are mad because there was no communication, I really apologize. Would you like me to text your personal number? Can I get your number? Just so you guys know. Great way to get someone's number. But then it's like, would you like me to have your personal number? Would you like me to call the nurse? Like, I just want to know what you would like me to do next time in this situation, because I never want this to happen again. When I would do stuff like that, it would de-escalate because in the moment they would have to realize and put themselves in my shoes. Now, again, let me just sit here and tell you, you will deal with some surgeons. You can't say anything. They literally won't even talk to you. They're having a day. It's nothing that you did. It's just their day. But that would happen, and that's how I would handle that situation. Now, another way I would handle a situation is I would have doctors always being like, I want you here at my cases all the time, you know, the stuff. First off, I would always encourage them and I'd be like, hey doc, you're so good. You know, like I've been with you the last 6 months, 12 months, and you've done it amazing. And it's honestly, I love just hanging out with you. Like, and you're so skilled and you're one of the best surgeons I've ever seen do this. But unfortunately, there's a lot of surgeons who aren't as good as you, doc. And a lot of times I need to go and be able to be with them so they're doing the best patient outcome. I'll still be at your cases as much as I can, but I'm not able to be at every single one because, you know, you're just an expert at this. Just so you know, I had to do this with my largest account here in Arizona when I was with Medtronic, and that doctor always wanted them. I got to the point where I was only showing up to 1 case a week instead of 1 case a day. Right. But it's because I was able to make them feel good, make them feel like they're amazing. Like, oh my gosh, you're doing God's work, but I need to go. Now, every once in a while, you can still do that. And then they would be like, I don't care. I've been in the situations where it's like, I'm not using you unless you're here. If you're not here, I'm going to use your competitor. And now they try to bait and switch. And now they try to pressure you, do all this talking. And the reason I just would smile at this is I was like, doc, I totally understand. And you got to do what you got to do. Again, just so you guys know, calling them a little bit on the bluff because that's a little unreasonable. But then this is why I would do it, because I would hit them with this. I would say, hey, doc, I totally understand. You got to do what you got to do. But doc, can I ask you a question? They'd be like, yeah, sure. And I would be like, are you able to see your patients in the office and do surgery at the same time? And then they would always smile and they're like, no, I can't. I'm like, doc, totally understand. You can't be 2 places at once. Just like I can't be 2 places at once. And doc, my goal is to always have the best patient outcome. And I've been with you for blah, blah, blah. And I believe that you are blah, 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 right? Talk them up. But it's like, I'm not able to be only with you because there's other stuff. Now I would always hit them with, but doc, if you do so much volume that you hit my whole quota, I'd love that. There'd be nothing more I'd love to do than just hang out with you all day. But when I would put it that way and I would make it, I'd always relate it back to them. Hey, are you able to see patients and be in surgery at the same time? No, you can't. Just like I can't do this. I can't be at your surgery and every other doctor's surgery that wants me there, right? Guess what? Every patient wants you in their in their room when you're coming in. But guess what? You have nurse practitioners look at them. You have other MAs. You have other people go because you can't be everywhere all at once at the same time, correct? Yeah. Okay, doc. So is it right? And then you can see where I can take that conversation. So I just want you guys to know that was something I always did. Same thing with materials management. We would have them sometimes be like, I need you here. We do this much volume with you, all the stuff. And they would try to like guilt trip you into things. It's just having those conversations. The one thing I do want to preface this is I did not do this first 3-6 months. I was not being like, oh, guns a-blazing. This is after I had created a relationship. I had shown them my worth. I showed them that I kept my word. I showed them that I continued to do what I say I was going to do. And I always kept following through. I was an expert on what I sold. So they knew that I was always making sure that I was reliable. But I want you guys to know that is like, you will have these conversations that are going to happen. It is what I just told people the other day. It's not objections, it's obstacles. You just have to overcome them, right? And it's just being able to be like, okay, this is it. Let me grab it. Let me de-escalate the situation and go. But I will sit here and tell you that is one of the tough parts of being in med device sales. You're dealing with a lot of different human beings, and you're dealing with, Rick who hates you because you walk in, right? But just being able to have those conversations. Now, lastly, being able to go work with, all the different people. I worked with, when I was in the GYN, I had GYN coordinators that would literally not even talk to me when I first showed up to my job, right? And I'll never forget, one of them literally told me I had a case on Thanksgiving. Literally didn't travel back home to be with my family because of this. It was my first year. I was all excited. I was in my first 2 months. And then I text her and she's like, oh, I meant next Thursday. And it's like, she did that on purpose. You don't make that mistake, right? But the reason I sat here and telling you is, even though I was so frustrated, I'm not gonna be like, screw this person, all this stuff. I killed them with kindness. Ended up getting her a Christmas card. Ended up every single time I saw her, I was like, hey, what's up? And I just killed them with kindness. And just so you all know, by month 6, spun around, she would start texting me, hey, you have cases here. Hey, she started giving me actual competitive cases that she would just schedule me on. And then I'd show up and the doc's like, why are you here? And I'm like, oh, I was scheduled by this. And they'll be like, well, I guess we'll just use you, right? Like, there was those things that I made a good enough relationship. But what I'm sitting here telling you, if you're in your first 3, 6, 12 months, you're going to have people that are going to be rough. They're going to be rude to you. They're going to be certain ways. It's just making sure that you kill them with kindness. But for example, that doctor, this associate rep that I was talking to, he's in his first 6 months. This person's freaking out. They're yelling at him, screaming at him. Now, again, there's not much he's going to be able to do, but when you come into that situation, say, I'm so sorry, I will never have this happen again, but doc, what would you like me to do next time in this case, in this scenario? What would you like me to do next time? Because I did reach out to the hospital. I did do that. So I want you guys to see that. But again, going back to difficult staff members in the OR, nurses, scrub techs, again, the first 6 to 12 months, guys, I always make the joke, golden retriever, butt shaking, happy. They yell at you, they throw stuff at you, and you just keep there smiling. You're always going to kill them with kindness. You're going to be as nice as you can. And then again, it wasn't until I was about a year in to be like, okay, guys, I've done this for 12 months. Rick, I'm sick of you being a negative Nancy. Like, how about you shut your mouth, right? Like, the reason I say that is because at that time you had a good enough rapport, and then they would be like, oh, okay, right? The reason I'm sitting here telling you is just being able to read human beings. Right? You always need to kill them with kindness. You need to be nice, but at some point you will have to get a backbone that where you can't just have people walk over you, because otherwise they'll be like, you need to be at every case. You need to do this. You need to do that. And then how I was able to grow the territory to have so much success is because killed them with kindness the first 6 to 12 months, did everything they needed me to, showed that I was reliable. And then when it came to, okay, now I need you guys to be responsible for yourself. Right? That's when it comes. So I just hope you guys know, I hope this is helpful. Hope you guys aren't dealing with difficult human beings, but I will sit here and tell you, if you are in medical device sales and you're in it long enough and you do have success, you will deal with difficult people. It's just how you're going to handle it. The reason I made the comments of like, when I see people and I can just read them, and I like did personal training and I can tell a lot by how somebody lives on their lifestyle, is I would just know what I'm getting myself into before I walk into, right? Because again, I'm not going to talk about certain things with somebody who's probably barely making 60K and their house is a mess and they're barely making ends meet and they're barely making it here today and they're always negative. I'm probably going to have a different conversation than when I'm talking to the PA, right? Making 6 figures, doing stuff like, there's a just different lifestyle. So the reason I'm sitting here telling you is just to understand that. And the last thing I'll just say, so you all can feel a little bit better. Again, it's normal to have a nurse, a scrub tech, or somebody get all mad at you. The one thing I'll sit here and tell you, I've learned from experience, the reason I tell you to kill them with kindness is because if you match their energy and if they're rude to you and if you're rude to them at all, they will then turn you in as the rep and say you're very hostile and negative to them or whatever it is, even though they're being extremely rude. But again, just so you know, had a top rep tell me when that happened to me, hey, that's going to happen because it means you're pushing back the boundaries a little bit. It's normal to have this happen. Don't freak out. I'll never forget when I was working on one of the cases, I've talked about this before, where I literally had somebody just call me freaking out. I just picked up, got done with the case, called it, and they're like, you can't be here. You're not allowed to be in our facility. And I'm like, well, that's not true. I worked with your director. Your director gave me the permission, ABC. I have the emails. And like, they just freaked out. And then they went to the higher up and said I was screaming at him and all this stuff. And I was like, I literally made a comment about like, hey, no, that's not true. We're able to be in your facility because we literally do millions of dollars every year with you guys with our product. And it got turned to, I told them they're lucky to have us because I make them money. And then it's like, I had somebody yelling at me. And the reason I'm just sitting here telling you this is, you're going to have funny situations like that. Can't take it too personal. What I just I'll never forget that moment because I remember my manager was no help. They were throwing me under the bus as well. And I was like, you weren't even there. You're in Colorado. Like, what are you talking about? I talked to a rep who'd been in the industry and he's like, hey man, we understand it. We're seeing it. We know exactly what's going on. Don't feel any bad. I know exactly who you're dealing with. They're always like this to everybody. So don't feel bad at all. They always make everyone's life difficult. You're doing great, man. And just so you know, if you keep crushing it in med device sales, it's going to happen more. And people will always threaten to kick you out of their facilities. Surgeons will threaten to stop working with you. Nurses will threaten to get you in trouble. And it's just, you just play the game. You just smile, you play the game. It's stressful at times, but just understand you guys is just keep treating them the right way. Keep doing you. Handle the situations as best as you can. Go find mentors. Go find people who are going to be able to help you. But what I will sit here and tell you in med device sales, there's a lot of miserable human beings that work in healthcare. Don't let it beat you down. Don't let them tear you to where you think you can't do this. Because again, just remember, you're not there. You're not where they're at. The reason you guys are doing what you're doing is because you have a goal. You have a future you want to make. You are driven. You want to make a difference, not only for you, but probably for the people on the table, for the people that you work with, for the people that you love, for the opportunities you want for your life. And a lot of those people in there are just waking up hating their life every day. And when I realized that, life got so much easier. And the last thing I'll leave you with, I used to get so frustrated in med device sales. I used to get so frustrated with all the people I dealt with. And then my life got way easier. Because I can't remember where I heard this quote, but it was like, just start thinking about everybody is an idiot. And if they're not an idiot, then you're surprised. And I needed that. And I remember listening to it and it just goes well in life. But I was sitting here and tell you, I used to always be like, gosh, am I the only one who gets this? Or am I the only one who does my job? Why am I doing 8 other people's jobs and all this stuff? All it did was make me frustrated. And then it made me more negative, right? And then I realized everything changed. I had a lot more fun. I was always happy when I was like, oh my gosh, you're smart. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, this is amazing. You're great to work with. Compared to most people just don't do their job just enough not to get fired. But they don't do their jobs in their descriptions. They don't do all the stuff. Then it falls on the rep. And then if you don't do it, you're blamed and you're the horrible human being, even though you've done 7 people's jobs and the list goes on. So I just hopefully that can make you laugh, hopefully make you understand you're doing great. If you guys are really interested in breaking into med device sales, or you guys are in med device sales, but not currently liking what you're doing or making the money that you think you are wanting to make, you guys can reach out to us as we've helped reps go from associates to full-line reps making over 150K. Again, if you guys are breaking into med device sales, feel free to reach out. You can click the link below. Follow us at Jacob McLaughlin, new to medical device sales on LinkedIn. But again, you guys, if you can press that like and subscribe button, share this with your friends. It means the world to me. I just want you all to know I do this because I just want you to win. Hopefully you guys can learn from my experience. I know how challenging it can be. I remember the long days. I remember doing it all. And that's why I make this content, to hopefully just make you laugh, hopefully give you a little bit of value, and hopefully it just continues to help you guys crush it in med device sales and go hit quota. See you on the next one. Peace.